And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is The Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Wow, what a weekend for all the fear-mongering from the keyboard tough guys running around posting pictures of themselves with their big guns because there was a balloon. There was a balloon floating overhead. You'd think Pennywise was about to pull them into a sewer. You would think, wow. I mean, incredible. I mean, it's mind-blowing to me. And look, I talked about this over the weekend. As someone who grew up during the Cold War, when there was always a Russian something, trolling around. There was always one of these moments. It wasn't such a big deal. You got used to it. Things happened. It shows how skittish our tough guys are. Back then you had tough guys. Something happens. Now it's a balloon. It's a balloon. It's a balloon. And again, for me, this is one of those moments where you go, oh, it says a lot about us as a society. It really does. In these kind of moments, I guess I'm old enough to remember when there was a national emergency, if you could call a balloon floating overhead a national emergency. Because understand, whatever they were getting, whatever that balloon was getting from 20 miles into the sky, I guess it was 60 to 100,000 feet is what they were saying, somewhere in that range. Whatever they were getting, you can get from Google Earth. You can get online. They could get from their satellites. Because understand, they've got satellites. But for me, it was one of these moments where, I now look at what kind of a society we've become. And this is the frightening part. This is truly a problem. This should have been a moment of unity. This should have been a moment of coming together and accomplishing something on the front of going, what do we do as a nation? Having a real conversation around what to do. Instead of, a bunch of nitwits taking pictures of themselves. The guy from Missouri was hysterical. He's got the little child's size military backpack on the front of him. And it was so it was adorable. He was so cute. With his big gun, he had the AR-15 with the big capacity magazine and the silencer on the front, of course, because we don't want the balloon to hear the bullet coming, of course. But he wanted to look like a tough guy. And the little tiny backpack, the little pack that, oh, it was so sad. So sad. But again, he was going to take care of it. Now, for those who know anything, okay, you're going to shoot in the sky. Maybe it goes a couple thousand feet. You're still, 50,000 feet short. It's my favorite picture is, a bunch of angry white people throwing bottles at the sky. You're not going to hit the balloon. But again, this should have been a moment where we came together. And over the weekend, I had friends call and go, oh my gosh, is the sky falling? Is this the beginning of the war? Are they attacking us? And the answer is no. This is what during the Cold War used to happen a lot. They would send something, we would shoot it down. We would send something, they would shoot it down. And this is where we're going to end up. Trust me, this is going to happen because the Chinese are saying, well, you're using force indiscriminately against our balloons. So when the next time one of our drones goes over, somewhere in their airspace, it's going to get shot down and we're going to have these international tensions. Congratulations, welcome to the new Cold War. And whether Biden was going to shoot it down at the beginning or at the end, it was going to happen anyhow. This is how this is played out. This is how the game is played. The fact that we appeared on the international stage incredibly divided. Really, I'll tell you, speaks volumes. The fact that you had a former president, he looks weak, weakening the sitting commander-in-chief's position. Again, historic. I come back to this moment and I go, what if Bill Clinton, after 9/11, after Republicans allowed 9/11 to happen, what if Bill Clinton would have come out and said, George Bush is the weakest leader possible. How is it possible that he could have let this happen? And we need somebody new. That didn't happen. The country mobilized. His approval rating shot up into the 80 and 90% range. When his father went into Iraq, the approval rating went through the roof. In that moment of crisis, we united. You know, it used to be that our divisions stopped at the water's edge. That like any family, we have our little tiffs, we argue with each other, we smack each other around a bit, but when it comes to the outside world, we put down those petty differences. We put down the party labels. But oh boy, our Boberts and our Greens and our Ronnie Jacksons. Oh, the only thing that would have made Ronnie Jackson more angry had the balloon been carrying a gas stove. I mean, that's how ridiculous this is. And understand, full spin mode, outrage candy on steroids to get people angry. And congratulations, it worked. And then, you knew it was coming. We find out that 3 balloons happened over the U.S. during the Trump years. Wasn't a big deal. Wasn't a big deal. You didn't see Democrats out there going, the balloon. You didn't see that. Didn't see it at all. Because that's how this is played. And we had better get used to it quickly. And we'd better come around to some ideas on how we're going to move forward as a country. Because again, this is one of these moments. This should be a unifying moment. Because understand, most recent Morning Consult poll came out and said that 85% of registered U.S. voters are concerned about China's cybersecurity attacks on us, the economic threats that they pose to this country. But we were more concerned about balloons. Balloons. And this is one of those moments where you go, we should be having this conversation. And the thing that the Biden administration, I think, is doing, and doing well, talking about how we're going to reshore manufacturing, how we're going to strengthen up our supply chains, how we're going to be able to compete in the future with the Chinas of the world, since we gave our manufacturing away. And I've had people, I've said this, people go, Biden was part of that. Okay, he was part of it back 30 years ago. A lot of people were. I'm talking about the here and now, the fact that right now we need to be moving in a direction and quickly to start making things here again. And this is, again, when you get past the outrage machine, when you get off of the outrage factory and the division that they have to push, and the fringe characters, the Boberts, the Greens, the Gateses, the rest of them, when you get out of MAGA world, the reality is the vast majority of Democrats, Republicans, Independents agree we need to be doing something on our economic policies. We need to be doing something on cybersecurity. We need to be doing more on human rights violations. We need to be doing a lot more on the military front. Because this is the part that is kind of comical. The people who tell us that they love the military the most, and every time there's a photo op, they've always got a picture. There's always somebody in a uniform with a gun and a flag, and they're smiling ear to ear. Because hey, it's good for PR. But it's amazing to me that they honestly didn't believe that the military had been tracking that balloon when it came into our airspace near the Aleutian Islands. They had no belief that they were tracking it. Now, when it first came to me, I said, probably the reason they didn't shoot it down is they want to see where it's going. They want to see what the Chinese are looking at. Because guess what? Knowing what your enemy is looking at is kind of important. Thinking about, strategically where they're going to go. Because if you think that balloon wasn't up there and we were blocking any transmission that it may have had somewhere else, because we've got technology like that, you're delusional. They're not going to allow that to happen. But they were looking at our military bases. I went on Google Earth. I can look at our military bases. Unless it's got some kind of X-ray vision where you can see down into the bunkers and through cement walls, not helpful. And then the part that was amazing to me, and this is the part again, these Chicken Littles, the sky is falling, there's a balloon. The part that's amazing to me is all of these elected leaders, like the governor of Missouri, saying, that's where we keep our stealth bombers. Why are they looking at that? What? Might as well tell them where we keep the nukes. Oh, yeah, they did. They did. Montana. That's where we keep our nukes. It's really quite remarkable. And again, I look at our keyboard tough guys, and we're going to go out there and we're going to shoot down that balloon with our pea shooters, all projecting this kind of strength while cowering like children, hiding behind mommy's skirts. I mean, it's really telling. Now, again, I use this idea of this was a trial balloon. The Chinese did this specifically to see how we would react and to sow seeds of division. Mission accomplished. They did just that. And Republicans, again, failed this country. The question is what brings us back together? And this is what I think, the State of the Union is going to be about on Tuesday. The president's going to have to come out and talk about how we move this country in a positive direction, how the policies that they have pushed through over these last 2 years are going to make lives better, and how we're going to deal with crisis in the future. When you have a group of people who are hell-bent on running around screaming at the balloons. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I look at Tuesday's State of the Union address, and the president really, he's got his work cut out for him. He really does. Because the right-wing echo chamber, the machine that they have built, the messaging machine they've built is really second to none. They've got Americans convinced that we're on the wrong track. Everything's horrible. The sky is falling. The most recent NBC poll out says 71% of Americans think the country's off on the wrong track. And this is one of those things that he has to listen to. The president's got to listen to the fact that the people are unhappy. In fact, there was another poll. I think it was a Quinnipiac poll, if I'm not mistaken, that was out that said, a civic science poll it was, that came out and said that, the highest level of unhappy people in decades, it's up to 12%. 12% of people are unhappy. Happy people are somewhere in the 50s, always somewhere in the 50s, never above 60, somewhere in the mid to high 50s. We're in the low 50s, 53% right now. 35% of people are neutral. I'm doing all right. 12% unhappy. And that's up over the last couple years. It was 10% for a while. So he's got to listen to that. He's got to listen to the fact that people are struggling, that inflation is really hurting a lot of working families. And he's got to talk about this. He's got to talk about the programs that are going to move us in a direction that are going to be helpful, the things that they've done thus far to create jobs, the manufacturing that they're bringing back, the infrastructure bills that are going to get people back to work in good union jobs that are going to be able to raise standards of living. That's all going to be helpful. But he's got to make the case that this inflation, you got to have a boogeyman. And the right has said everything's Joe Biden's fault. You know, I can't tell you how many people go, eggs are $11,000 an egg. Locally, I think they were $3.19 or something like that. He's got to be able to make the case and go and look. Here's where our problem is. Our problems, supply chains are broken. We are working on getting that fixed. We're reshoring manufacturing. We're investing in infrastructure. We're investing in job training. We're investing a lot of things to help secure our supply lines. That was broken long before I got here. We outsourced all these jobs. We did all of the, like, corporate America and the greed and in the boardrooms decide our national manufacturing strategy. We are now moving in a direction to reclaim some of that. And then talk about the jobs that are being created around in manufacturing. You know, how we're bringing those jobs back to help feed that supply chain. But he's also got to talk about the fact that, you know, you look at the oil companies who have just been gouging us like crazy. Record profits that they have never seen before in history. The kind of obscene profits that they've never seen that these oil companies are putting in their pocket, and then telling us, no, it's Biden's fault the oil prices are so high. No, this is good old-fashioned American greed and opportunism. Corporate America is gouging us. And he's got to come out strong in talking about how, you know, the Federal Trade Commission is going to start looking into antitrust violations. We're going to start going after these gougers. We're going to start holding these people accountable. And we're going to use our government to hold them accountable and to help the average consumer and to help people get through. And he's got to do it in a way that people are going to understand. It's much easier to just go, no, Biden. Because that's all we hear from the right. They don't have a plan. There's nothing there. They've got no platform. They've got no ideas. They've got nothing other than just anger, other than just throwing a temper tantrum and going, Biden, Biden, Biden. Everything's Biden. And whoever would be next, it's going to be them. Because, again, they've got no solutions. There's nothing there. Now, this president has created, in 2 years, more jobs than any president in our country's history. In 2 years. And the response I get from my friends on the right is, well, you know, workforce participation's down. And you go, a little bit. It's ticked down a bit. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of people who are older aren't going back into the workforce for a bunch of reasons. One, COVID's not over. I know the right has passed. I know the House passed legislation saying COVID's over and it's done. For a lot of people, especially the older workers, it's not. And they're worried about it and they're going, heck with this, we're going to retire. That's a huge portion of the people not in the workforce. But they want you to believe that there's a bunch of lazy people out there that your hard work is covering. No, the big part of that is people retiring. Now, I do find it interesting that the people who complain about workforce participation are the loudest voices, mind you, are the people from the states that have the lowest workforce participation. Now, understand, what they want you to believe it's those blue states with their high union density rates and their union wages and their union health care and in their social safety net programs like food stamps and unemployment. You know, they want you to believe that those states are the ones that are staying home en masse. And the reality is the states with the lowest workforce participation rate is and always has been our southern states. What has been dragging us down for decades. Well, from the beginning of the country, basically. West Virginia has the lowest workforce participation rate, 55%. Followed by Mississippi, New Mexico, Arkansas, South Carolina, Alabama, Kentucky, Maine, Louisiana, and Florida. Now Maine and Florida, you go, I can almost see that. A lot of retirees there. But the rest of those are solidly, red states. Well, not New Mexico. New Mexico is a swing state. The rest of those are West Virginia, Mississippi, Arkansas, South Carolina, Alabama, Kentucky, Louisiana. A lot of red there. And not much safety net. not much union density. So the arguments that the narrative that they throw at us, it's not there. It's not working. But we don't think that far down the road. The area with the highest workforce participation, oddly enough, the place everybody loves to hate, Washington, D.C. Almost 72% of people there have jobs. And again, it's all those welfare people. Because to listen to a Republican talk about our welfare programs and to talk about workforce participation, you would think there are no workers in D.C. I mean, that's the part that just is kind of remarkable to me. So I think the president's got to talk about the debt ceiling as well. That's got to come up. And the danger that is going to be caused by us holding the country hostage. I think that has got to come up. And you've got to point names. You got to point fingers. You got to point them out. We cannot, in any way, shape, or form, not pass a debt ceiling increase. Now, remember, Republicans, they want to hold us hostage. They want to hold the country hostage. And Social Security, I know Kevin McCarthy said it's off the table. It's not. There are members in the Republican study group, of which about 75% of House Republicans are members. They have signed on to wanting to raise the retirement age to 70, and then once it hits 70, to index that to raise every year after that. They want to means test Medicare. They want to do a whole bunch of stuff that, again, we're not destroying Social Security and Medicare. We're just fixing it so it works better for corporate America. That's the reality. What the president needs to be talking about is, I will not allow anything negative to happen. I will veto every Republican proposal on Social Security and Medicare. I will only sign a bill that expands it, that helps seniors and helps people move forward. But again, in this day and age, we're not going to see that. There is a lot coming, and the president's going to have to make this plea. And get people to think that he understands. He can't have a detached moment where people think he's out of touch. He has to empathize and has to sell it. Look, I understand things are tough. Things are tough all over, and we are working to make things better. We are working every day to try and bring inflation down, and we have brought inflation down. Gas prices are down. Things are going in the right direction. We are on the path that is going to get us where we need to go. We're investing in infrastructure, reshoring manufacturing. We are doing the things that need to be done. And what's interesting is the right losing their mind. Now, again, infrastructure, manufacturing, those are Trump's major platforms. The fact that Biden's actually doing them and not just talking about them, and then have Trump and the MAGA crowd attacking him is rather remarkable. Honestly, truthfully, it's quite remarkable. But I'm hoping the president comes out swinging, and I'm hoping he full defense of what they've accomplished, because it's enormous. It's enormous what they've done in such a short period of time. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1910. That was the day Philadelphia garment workers ended their strike in victory. The strike began just 5 days before Christmas. 7,000 young women walked out of area factories when they learned their shops were receiving orders from struck shops in New York City. Often referred to as the uprising of the 20,000, striking New York City garment workers had rocked the industry. The number of strikers in Philadelphia soon grew to over 15,000. The young women crafted their own set of demands. They wanted shorter workdays, uniform wages, better pay, and union recognition. Close to 300 arrests were made in the first week of the strike alone. Labor leaders like Big Bill Haywood and Mother Jones addressed picketers, walked the lines, and offered financial support. Mother Jones declared, "Let us live together or starve together. We will let New York know that we can also fight. We will march up and down the streets of Philadelphia in solid ranks until victory is ours." strikers marched throughout the area to call out workers in many of the smaller shops. Tragically, at least 7 workers were killed and a dozen or more seriously injured in a fire at a smaller shop that continued to operate throughout the strike. When manufacturers agreed to some concessions but refused union recognition, the women would not settle, stating, quote, "We will go back to work as union or starve." Historian Daniel Sidoric notes, the gains won demonstrated the resolute determination of the strikers to see their struggle through to victory, even in the defiance of union leaders when necessary, and to the amazement of almost all observers. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
People are baffled by the surreal saga of George Santos, the bizarre Republican Congress critter who is a bottomless sinkhole of lies. How could he think that he, a highly visible public figure, could get away with such blatant fabrications? Perhaps he thought he was a corporation. After all, these multi-billion-dollar brand name outfits routinely lie about who they really are. Crass polluters shamelessly run PR campaigns claiming to be environmentalists. Price gougers pose as consumer champions, and economic downsizers glorify themselves as visionary creators. They gild their resumes for their own profit, and they get away with it. So George might have thought, I'll follow the corporate model, just make stuff up, like soulless tobacco executives do. For decades, they killed millions of people for profit, flat out lying that nicotine was not addictive, that their cancer sticks were not deadly, and that they did not target their ads to children. But wait, today's tobacco titans claim to be born-again public health champions. We have an unprecedented opportunity to move beyond smoking, said the head honcho of the Philip Morris brand, asserting that Big Tobacco would henceforth back the public push for a, quote, smoke-free future. Philip Morris garnered widespread praise for this bold stand, but it was a deliberate lie. Even as the executives' lips moved, the tobacco giants were spending billions on lobbyists and PR campaigns to gut state and national proposals to prevent addiction and actually lead to a smoke-free future. This is Jim Hightower saying, yes, we should be outraged that Santos, a flagrant political fake, has swindled his way into Congress, and he should be ousted. But what will Congress do about the far more destructive corporate deceivers who are George Santos's role models? Their lies kill people, yet they're still welcome in the halls of Congress.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So still hung up on the balloons. The balloon thing is really remarkable to me this weekend. I mean, I'll be quite frank. Never thought we were this skittish. Didn't think that. Knew we were divided. Knew we had some problems. But wow, when you see people dressing up in their cosplay military outfits with their big, fake assault rifles, going out and taking pictures of themselves, like J.D. Vance with his $500 shoes sitting in front of the wood pile, like he's going to shoot up into the sky and take out the balloon. Just amazing to me. Anyway, this again, classic divide and conquer. I'm here to share some thoughts and bang this around a bit. I've asked my good friend Phil Glover to come talk with us. Phil's an AFGE District 3 National Vice President. Also got some intel background, which is the reason I brought him on to share some thoughts, because there's parts of this that I think we should have a real honest conversation around. Phil, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks, Rick. It's an interesting subject.
So were you running around in your backyard with your slingshot, shooting up into the sky because the balloons were coming around?
No, I can't say that I was too nervous about it. I kept reading reports about this balloon coming across the country. No, I can't say that I was that worried about it.
No, but here's the thing, and this is where I came down on this. Look, I grew up during the end of the Cold War. This kind of stuff happened. I remember as a kid, having to dodge under the desk because, Catholic school desks, evidently stopped a nuclear winter because we understood the idea of mutual assured destruction. And every once in a while, there was a Russian ship off the coast or a submarine or something. It always happened. You didn't have people running like they were really afraid of. This is amazing to me. Or am I missing something?
No, I think. Look, I think social media and the way that media now is so segregated. You listen to the media you want to listen to that gives your point of view. And unfortunately, straight news is not really a thing very much anymore. So this kind of thing, it just drives more wedges into the population.
Yep.
So, what used to be something that was normal, let's face it, every country sends over, spy planes, or in our case, we have drones. We used to have U-2 aircraft and SR-71 Blackbirds that flew over Russia and China and wherever else, and that was normal. It had been normal, and don't think that the other side wasn't sending stuff over the United States. They were, just like we were doing over there.
Yeah, but I come back to this, and I believe this was kind of a trial balloon. I believe the Chinese did this to go, let's see how they react. Let's see what reaction of the U.S. military is. Let's see what the reaction of the American people is. And I got to tell you, I think we failed. I think we failed the trial balloon test.
Well, I think certainly, I don't know, years ago, the idea of foreign policy and foreign affairs was politics stopped at the water's edge. And that has gone away over, the last decade or so, to where everything is fair game. Nothing is a secret. Nothing is nuanced. All you have to do is look at the Twitter feed of some people, Bobert and Jordan, and look at their Twitter feed over the last couple days with this. It's just gotten ridiculous. And I would hope that at some point the public, I hope, starts to realize they're being played. I don't know if they will or not, but I think they should.
But it's one of these things where I look at the media structure, I look at the messaging that comes out. It's, crisis. We've got to have a crisis, and then it's panic. And then panic, and then you've got, we've got to have, each side ramp up and attack the other. And it seems like we're attacking each other and not the problem. Look, China's a problem. We've got some serious issues with China on the economic front especially. And I think this administration is addressing some of that on the cybersecurity front, on the supply chain front, especially when you're talking about military needs, bringing the manufacturing chips here. I think there's a lot that has to be done, and we're just not. I don't know that we're a serious enough country yet to be able to deal with real problems because we're still worried about balloons.
Well, I think we certainly, as the administration has attempted to bring manufacturing back to the United States, I think the other thing is people don't realize how long that takes. We are in a global economy. The chip issue, when it came up, how long does it take to build a plant, train people to create chips, the right ones, the ones that are needed at that moment? Those things all take time. And unfortunately, we become a society that thinks, boink, I hit my button, I want this now.
Yep.
That's not how that works.
DoorDash will deliver it. Correct.
And we've been battling China economically for decades. We all, this isn't new. And then, think of them stealing, a lot of our technology and patents and things that we were creating and cheapening it and selling it back to us, essentially, or selling it across the globe to other countries. I guess that's part of what this balloon thing was. I don't know, as it went over Alaska, Wasilla, I guess. I don't know. I just think that people get too focused on these things. If you were in the military, if you ever got a briefing about what was going on in the world, these things were going on a lot. Now, I was in the 80s during Reagan's period of time, and believe me, this stuff was going on a lot. We were looking at various countries and all the time as threats, and they were looking at us. And that's, kind of how it was.
Yeah, but the thing that gets me is it's a balloon. It's a balloon, 80,000 feet in the air. What possibly could that balloon have gotten from 80,000 feet in the air that their satellites couldn't get, that Google Maps couldn't have gotten them?
Probably nothing nowadays.
Yeah, I mean that's the part that we a total freak out without the thought of what are they actually gathering. And from a military perspective, because you were a military guy, is there some advantage to going, well, let's see where it goes, let's track it, let's find out what data comes out of it, let's see what they're sending back, because we've got the capability to do all that stuff. There's value in that, right?
I don't think there's a. I think it's like you said originally, though. They sent this over to kind of provoke something.
Yeah.
It's not a technological advancement. So whether it was a weather balloon that went astray, or whether it wasn't, whether it was a piece of technology that shouldn't have come this direction, it's a pretty outdated form of it.
Yeah.
Considering, they're trying to go to the moon. We're trying to go back to the moon. They have satellite systems just like we do across around the globe. So it's kind of it's an odd way of doing anything that is supposed to show technological superiority.
Yeah, good point. You listen to the Rick Smith Show with Phil Glover. Phil's the AFGE local national District 3 National Vice President. You can check out their website, afge.org. I want to get your thought on the State of the Union, kind of turn. I'm sure the balloon will come up, as hey, we shot it down, we did that. But there's got to be much more. There are a lot of people who are struggling. Inflation's still, hurting working families. What are you expecting to come out of the State of the Union address? And as a head guy over there at AFGE, what are you hoping to hear for your members?
Well, I think I think what you're going to see is the president putting forward what things have happened since the pandemic. When he came into office, the jobs reports, 3.4% unemployment, trying to get the economy back up and running the way it should after, a complete shutdown. And again, that's, I think one side of the aisle is going to sit on their hands. The other side of the aisle is going to jump and clap. And unfortunately, nobody wants to recognize or they're into these political corners. So as the country comes out of a once in 100-year pandemic, we're going to see, we see a tax on labor. Just a year ago, people were praising nurses and teachers and everyone else. And there are a tax on labor now. There's a tax on teachers, there's a tax on their income. We're coming back to that again. We've come around circle. So we must be out of it. And, you look at this idea of inflation at the same time, you see major corporations with huge profits. Exxon reported huge profits this past year. All of these other corporations. So that's not inflation. That's gouging. And so, the narrative is inflation, but the truth is that's not what is going on. The truth is these companies were shut down during a pandemic, and they're trying to make their profits back. And so they're jacking up prices. And the regular person out there, like you and me and others, are paying the price for it. We got a little tiny bit of help during the pandemic. Small businesses got a little bit of help. People got a little bit of help. But the fact is these companies want to make back all the profits that they didn't make during that 2 or 3 years. And they're hammering us. And I wish the Congress and the White House and others would really step up that message instead of this inflation message, which I think is bunk.
No, I'm with you, and this is where there's part of me that hopes the president comes out and says, "Look, the Federal Trade Commission is going to start launching major investigations. We're going to come up with a Truman-esque committee to do, to look at, pandemic profiteering. We're going to go after these companies and find out why these prices are so high, why inflation's gotten out of hand, and start locking people up."
I, you know, even toward the end of last year when the House was still in the Democrats' hands, you didn't see them bring these companies up
Nope.
in hearings and ask, that the Senate can do that now that they have a majority. Last year they were 50-50, and they really didn't have subpoena power unless both sides agreed and other things. Now that the committees are not equal, the Senate should start doing that. They should start bringing some of these companies in and asking them where their profit lines are and why all of a sudden they're coming in with this kind of margin and how that's inflationary. The public deserves to know that.
Yep.
And that we also ought to be talking about. Every time I see a tweet from a Republican that says, inflation's up this much and it's Biden's inflation, I always tweet back, are you proposing price caps? Or are you going to actually increase the minimum wage? They're not going to do that.
Right. There's no policy, and this is where my question comes: of should Biden come out and say, "Look, put a bill on my desk to be able to do this, this, and this to address inflation. If you want to do something in the House that's going to be helpful, since you don't have any plans," because the reality is Republicans have no plans. There's nothing. I mean, we've denounced socialism. Congratulations. You passed a resolution that has no enforcement, has no goal, no anything. You did your performative thing, bread and circus. Congratulations, yay, good for you. But you don't have any legislation that's going to actually do anything other than get you your 15 seconds on fake news. So should he be coming out and saying, "Look, I want this. I want a price gouging bill on my desk. I want an increase in the minimum wage. I want to be able to do these things. I need these tools to help the American people get by"?
I certainly wish he would do that. I mean, I think he could put them on their heels a little bit if he did that. We just had a bill the other day pass, which we were not for, called the Show Up Act. Federal workers worked all through the pandemic. We had office workers that obviously worked. They were working from home. They didn't bring them into office spaces where they could be infected by the virus. And so the first bill out of the chute from the new Republican chairman of the Oversight Committee is this bill to get us all back to work. Well, we've been working. Social Security offices have been processing Social Security. VBA has been processing veterans benefits. Everything's not ideal, but it wasn't ideal in the office setting either.
Yeah.
Actually, productivity in some cases went up because people didn't have to commute in an hour or commute home an hour. They got up, they go to their station, start working.
Yep.
They don't have coffee breaks with their buddies. You don't have lunch to go to and then come back and then get back into the day. There's trade-offs. But that's the first bill that they put forward on the federal workforce.
Yeah, but their narrative, Phil, and you know this as well as anyone, nobody